Work session, on November 20th. Time is 5:30. We are all here but one council person tonight, so Joanne Osborne will not be joining the work session, and when we'll have to bring the motion up for the regular session. So, all right, I'd like to remind council once more to refrain from asking questions until the staff presentations are complete. And this evening, we will be presented by Lisa Maxey Mullins, Assistant City Attorney, on the Arizona Open Meeting Law and its requirements. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's been brought to our attention that it's been several years since the Council has had a overview of the Arizona Open Meeting Law. So our goal today is to provide a general overview of the requirements of the law. We'll talk about some best practice tips. We know that all of you are familiar with the law, so again, this is a general refresher. The open meeting law has been around for over 50 years. During the course of those 50-some-odd years, there's only been a few changes to the provisions, and primarily those changes were to tweak the law, to add some teeth to it, and minor changes to deal with some of the technological advances that have taken place since 1962. So let's talk about the underlying principle of the open meeting law. Essentially, going forward, in order to summarize the requirements of the law, we always come back to this underlying principle. And that principle is the public body's decision-making process shall be open to the public. The goal is to maximize the public's access to the government decision process. In 1978, after a couple of court cases were decided in trying to interpret the law, the legislature went back in and made some changes. And those changes, again, summarize that underlying principle. Meetings of the public body must be held in public. The public has a right to attend and listen. And all legal actions must occur in a public meeting. Ironically, the law does not provide the public the right to participate in the meeting, but the public does have the right to have access to the meeting. So how is openness accomplished? How do you maximize the public's ability to participate, to have access to the decision-making process? There are a couple of tools that are set forth in the provisions. The notice and agenda is required, the opportunity for the public citizen to listen and attend meetings. There are minutes requirements for the open meeting law. And also, the legislature has stated that any time this law is being interpreted, the law should be construed in the favor of open and public meetings. Now, the exceptions to the law are the executive sessions and emergencies. So we're going to go through 10 of the general requirements of the Arizona Open Meeting Law. The first requirement is to provide proper notice of all public body meetings. This requirement is clear, it's mandatory. In order to maximize the public's access, a notice and agenda must be posted and be available to the public at least 24 hours before the meeting. Now, there are some exceptions. Again, there's the emergency exception and also the ability of a council or public body to recess and resume a meeting if necessary and then post the notice. Requirement number 2, discussions of the public body matters should not be discussed outside of a meeting among a quorum of the public body. So let's talk about, this is a mandatory requirement. All legal actions of the public body shall occur in a public meeting. That would include any type of discussions, deliberations, any type of proposals. Those should occur in a public meeting if it's among a quorum. A quorum would be a majority of the board, and that would be members of the public body, including, again, this includes any type of deliberations that the council or the public body would have regarding these matters that could come before the public body. So in 2005, the Arizona Attorney General's office had to deal with some of the involving technological changes that had taken place. specifically email. And they wanted to deal with how do you deal with a situation when there's a splintering of a quorum, meaning maybe a quorum is not present, but once the information is shared amongst the quorum, and once there's a proposal or a discussion amongst the quorum, therefore you would have a violation of the open meeting law. A good example of this is if a council member or a public body member, number 1, number 2, and number 3, have an email discussion about an item that would come before the council on a future date. Public body member number 3 then takes that email string and he emails it out to public body member number 4 and number 5 and said, hey, this is the discussion that I had with the other public body members. I would like to share that with you. And then they respond also. In that situation, according to the Arizona Attorney General opinion, that is a discussion amongst a quorum because you've had a discussion amongst 5 public body members of a 7-member public body. In that situation, the Attorney General has been clear that this is a violation of an open meeting law. This would not only apply to emails, but also Facebook posts or discussions that you might have amongst a quorum, and also any type of meetings outside of the public body meeting that quorum would have. Again, the issue was you all don't have to be in the same place at the same time. There can be a splintering of the quorum in order to make a full quorum. Requirement number 3, a public body may only discuss items listed on the agenda. Again, if it's not on the agenda, if it's not related to an item on the agenda, then there should be no discussion. Consider the agenda as a menu, where as a public citizen, if you're sitting at home, you pull up the agenda and you make a decision about whether or not you want to attend that meeting and listen in on the public discussion of the public body. If an item is not on the agenda and then there is a discussion at the meeting, then how can the public citizen have the information to determine whether or not they want to attend that meeting? Requirement number 4, a public body's agenda should contain specific details and not general references. An agenda that has statements that simply state old business or new business without any specific detail, again, we're in a situation where how can the public citizen make a decision about whether or not they want to attend that meeting? So the law has been clear that you cannot have general references on an agenda. The references should be specific. There are 2 exceptions, of course, the current event summary and executive sessions. The current event summary, this was a change made in 2012, specifically dealing with how to deal with current events. The legislature recognized that there are situations where a public body member might need to make an announcement about an upcoming event, or a public body member might want to discuss accomplishments that person has received. So in this situation, if the current events is listed on the agenda, then a public body member can then inform other public body members about the current event. There are some limitations. Of course, it has to be listed on the agenda, current events, and also the members of the public body cannot propose, discuss, or deliberate on the issue that was raised during the current event summary. Requirement number 5, a public body must maintain accurate minutes for all public body meetings and subcommittee meetings. The meeting minutes are required by law. Meeting minutes should contain enough information to inform a public citizen as to what happened at the meeting, and they should have specific information regarding legal actions taken by the public body. Again, this is one of the tools utilized to maximize public access to the public body's decision-making process. How important are meeting minutes? The law specifically states that you have 3 working days after a meeting. The public has access to your meeting minutes or the recording of the meeting. After the actual minutes are approved by the public body, the citizens, within 2 days, that information has to be posted on the public body's website. Requirement number 6. A public body may not discuss an issue raised by a citizen during the call to the public unless the issue presented by the citizen is properly noticed on the agenda or the issue is covered by one of the statutory exemptions. Again, call to the public is allowed under the law. It is not mandatory, and there can be restrictions as far as the call to the public, specifically time limitations, and also limitations to prevent repetition. However, those issues that are raised during the call to the public, a public body cannot discuss those issues. There are three exceptions. They can respond to a criticism. If someone's at the podium and they're specifically criticizing a specific council member or public body member, the public body member could respond and put on the record a response to that criticism. The other two options is to ask staff to review it or to put it on a future agenda. Requirement number 7, executive session may only be convened for one of the 7 specific purposes set forth in the law. Executive sessions, as we know, is an exception to the rule of openness. And in order to ensure that this executive sessions are not abused, they are limited to one of the 7 situations. The top 3 you generally see used are an executive session for legal advice, an executive session to provide instruction regarding litigation or negotiations, and also executive session for personnel matters. As I stated, an executive session is an exception to the rule. It's a closed-door session. The public does not participate, and it can only be used for one of the 7 reasons. Also, the executive session notice on the agenda is generally a general description, not specific. The goal generally for most of those executive session items is because it's a confidential matter, and therefore you can utilize the general description on the agenda. The requirements of executive session, although it is an exception to the rule, it still has to be properly noticed. You have to vote to convene a executive sessions. There are executive session minutes. And also, if the public body wants to take any type of action, you have to come out and put that action on in the public vote. Executive session from legal advice, there was some discussion. Again, this is one of the top 3 mostly used items as far as executive session. There was a situation where a public body had a lawyer on their board, and they decided, okay, we can go into executive session. You need a lawyer present for executive session, but the law is clear and it has been interpreted. It has to be a lawyer for the public body and not just any lawyer. Executive sessions, number 8, executive sessions are confidential. I think this is a simple rule. It's the Vegas rule. What happens in executive sessions stays in executive sessions. There are only 2 exceptions to that. That's the open meeting law violation and either the Attorney General's office or the county attorneys coming in to investigate, or there's an audit situation. Requirement number 9, the open meeting law is also applicable to subcommittees and advisory committees of the public body. So an advisory committee or a subcommittee generally established by the council or the public body, those committees are also subject to the open meeting law, meaning there has to be notice of those meetings, there has to be minutes related to those meetings, and essentially the public body has the opportunity to, again, attend and listen in. This change in the law came about because it was discovered that a lot of the meat of the discussion and deliberation was being taken place in the subcommittee, and once it got to the council or the larger board, there was little or no discussion, and citizens were wondering, well, where's all the discussion? If it's taking place in the subcommittees, therefore, they also have the right to be present and listen. Requirement number 10, violations of the open meeting law may result in consequences as set forth in the provision. Some of those are the public body's actions are null and void. You can also be investigated by the Attorney General's office or the County Attorney's office. In some situations, you might have to go back and ratify your prior actions, and this could have an impact when there's contracts involved or expenditures for contracts. There could be up to a $500 penalty for individual public body members. There's also the option to pay attorney's fees and court costs if it has to go to court, and the removal from public office. But I think the priceless one, which cannot be valued, is the embarrassment and loss of public trust. Once you've undermined the trust that the citizens have in the public body, then that's hard to get back from that. Again, if you can't remember anything else, when in doubt, err on the side of openness, and all decision-making deliberations should be carried out in the public. We provided some resources, and of course, if you have questions, the city attorney and the legal services department are available to answer those.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? No? Okay. I believe we're going to end this meeting because I know that you're going to do your council reports at the main meeting and the manager's summary. So I will adjourn this meeting, and we will begin at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned.